Nico Rosberg didn't hesitate when he dropped the number 60. That's how many sponsor days Mercedes drivers commit every single year. Photo shoots, media junkets, corporate meet and greets. Then he dropped the second number, 10. That's Ferrari's demand. 10 days, 50 fewer days in suits, under lights, away from the simulator. In that split second, Hamilton's move came into focus. He didn't leave Mercedes just to wear red. He left to breathe. Rosberg repeated the word painful twice. Not for drama, but because only those who've lived it understand. A driver preparing for battle can't afford to lose 50 days a year to corporate scripts. What Hamilton chose wasn't just Ferrari, it was freedom. And in Formula One, where milliseconds decide careers, freedom isn't luxury, it's a weapon. But what does 50 days really mean when the championship comes down to a handful of points? Imagine being Lewis Hamilton in 2023. Every season meant 60 sponsor days locked into his calendar before a single lap was turned. That's nearly 2 full months carved away from preparation. Not training, not recovery, not simulator time, PR time. Entire days consumed by travel, rehearsals, scripts, corporate handshakes, when the only thing that mattered to him was finding the 10th of a second that separated victory from defeat. Nico Rosberg wasn't exaggerating when he called it painful. He repeated the word twice because he knew exactly how it gnaws at you. These aren't casual appearances. They're 12-hour days, sometimes stacked back-to-back, with recovery disrupted by jet lag, diet shifted by banquets, focus fractured by endless rehearsals. For a driver obsessed with precision, that's torture. Hamilton built his success on preparation and detail, on energy management, as much as outright pace. At Mercedes, that balance was breaking. Every Thursday spent in a corporate suite was one less Thursday in the simulator. Every Friday, traveling to a sponsor event was one less Friday spent with engineers analyzing data. Multiply that by 60, and the deficit becomes massive. Rosberg hinted that George Russell may already be feeling the same pull in his own contract talks. That tells you this isn't about Hamilton's age, form, or ambition. It's structural, it's institutional. Mercedes' greatest strength, its reach as a global commercial giant, also became its hidden weakness. And here's the irony. Hamilton wasn't running from competition. He was running from fragmentation. Because in Formula One, performance isn't built only on the car you drive. It's built on the hours you dedicate to focus, recovery, and synergy with your engineers. Strip away 50 of those days, and you strip away the margin that wins championships. But what happens when you hand those 50 days back? Can freedom translate into lap time, into points, into the elusive 8th title? Or is this just another myth in a sport where every advantage is measured in tenths? 50 days. On paper, it looks like a scheduling perk. In reality, it's a performance multiplier. Let's break it down. A modern F1 driver spends roughly 6 hours in the simulator for every major development package. That includes setup trials, tyre degradation mapping, and run plan testing. Losing even 10 of those days to PR equals 60 hours gone. 60 hours of sim work that could have refined tyre strategy, braking points, or DRS deployment. Multiply that by 5, and suddenly Hamilton was carrying a deficit of 300 hours compared to what Ferrari could offer him. 300 hours is the difference between understanding how the car behaves on lap 12 versus lap 42. It's the difference between knowing when your tyres will fall off a cliff and guessing. Then there's physical recovery. F1 performance isn't just about peak fitness, it's about micro-recovery cycles. Sleep scientists working with teams estimate that even a single disrupted night can reduce cognitive reaction speed by up to 0.15 seconds. Across 60 sponsor days, that's potentially 9 full race weekends where Hamilton's mental sharpness was dulled. In a sport where reaction time to a safety car restart or late braking duel decides positions, 0.15 seconds is enormous. Now, apply that to the championship mathematics. The 2021 season was decided by 8 points. In 2016, Hamilton lost to Rosberg by 5. In both cases, the margins were microscopic. If 50 regained days give Hamilton even 0.2 of a second across qualifying, that can swing 3 or 4 grid spots. Across a season, that's dozens of points. Not theoretical points, real championship-altering points. This is why Rosberg's casual remark carried so much weight. He wasn't talking about lifestyle, he was talking about a hidden structural performance penalty built into Mercedes' corporate machine. At Ferrari, Hamilton saw more than red paint and a prancing horse. He saw lap time, hidden in the calendar. But there's a deeper layer still. Technical freedom is one thing, mental freedom is another, and when the mind is uncluttered, the driver emerges sharper, hungrier, more dangerous. So how does Hamilton's psychology shift with 50 days returned to him? When Nico Rosberg repeated the word painful, he wasn't talking about tired legs or late nights. He was pointing to the psychological toll of being stretched too thin. For Hamilton, every sponsor day wasn't just hours lost, it was clarity stolen. One morning you're in Brackley, dissecting sector data. The next you're in Shanghai, smiling for cameras with a jet-lagged mind. And by the time you get back, the rhythm is broken. Formula One at this level is about continuity. You don't just build confidence in the car lap by lap. You build it week by week, month by month. Mercedes' schedule fractured that process. At Ferrari, the contrast is night and day, 10 days. That's not just a lighter workload, that's space to breathe, to reset, to arrive at each race weekend with energy intact. In the psychology of elite performance, that's everything. Sports scientists call it cognitive freshness. It's the ability to make clear, confident decisions under stress because your mind isn't clouded by fatigue or divided attention. For Hamilton, whose racing strength has always been reading the race in real time, managing tyres, spotting undercut windows, making instinctive calls, that freshness is the difference between defending second place and turning it into victory. And there's another layer. At Mercedes, Hamilton was more than a driver. He was a global brand, the face of the team's corporate identity. That visibility brought him power, but also made him a prisoner. Every decision, every word, every appearance filtered through a sponsorship lens. At Ferrari, he's still a superstar, but he's one within a myth larger than any individual. The red car sells itself. That releases Hamilton from the constant pressure to perform off track and channels it back where he thrives, on track. But psychological freedom doesn't guarantee results. It sets the stage. Taish. The question is, how will that newfound clarity reshape Hamilton's battle with Charles Leclerc, a teammate born and raised inside Ferrari's walls? Freedom is powerful, but Ferrari is not a blank canvas. Hamilton walked into a garage where Charles Leclerc has been the golden child for half a decade. Leclerc speaks the language, embodies the mythology, and carries the hopes of the Tifosi as though he were born with the prancing horse stitched onto his heart. In Maranello, loyalty isn't just emotional, it's institutional. Engineers, strategists, even mechanics have grown up alongside Leclerc, shaping their careers around his trajectory. This is where Hamilton's 50 extra days collide with a different kind of currency: embedded loyalty. Leclerc doesn't need fewer sponsor days to feel fresh. He draws his energy from the myth of Ferrari itself. He knows every corridor, every face, every nuance of how this team operates under pressure. Hamilton, arriving as the outsider, may have more freedom, but he's also starting from zero in a culture that demands trust above all else. And yet, this is exactly why the move could redefine Ferrari. Hamilton doesn't need to be the team's poster child. He needs to be its catalyst. With his calendar freed, he can spend those reclaimed hours in ways Leclerc never has to. Longer simulator sessions, deeper technical debriefs, sharper preparation with engineers. In a season where a tenth of a second can flip grid positions, the outsider advantage isn't in history, but in focus. The tension will be palpable. Every time Leclerc secures pole with instinctive one-lap brilliance, the question will hang: can Hamilton's clarity and preparation translate into race day victories? Every time strategy falters, as it so often has at Ferrari, will Hamilton's liberated energy allow him to push back harder, to question calls Leclerc has learned to accept? This isn't just freedom versus loyalty. It's two philosophies colliding inside the same garage. One built on cultural belonging, the other on personal liberation. And in the razor-thin margins of a championship fight, Ferrari won't be able to protect both equally. So what happens when the balance tips? Does Ferrari gamble on Leclerc's myth or Hamilton's freedom? Mercedes' dominance in the hybrid era wasn't just about horsepower, it was about global influence. The Silver Arrows became a commercial juggernaut, powered by an ecosystem of sponsors who wanted every ounce of visibility. For the team, those 60 PR days weren't a burden. They were proof of strength, evidence that Mercedes could market itself as the sport's ultimate corporate machine. The problem is that success at this scale always comes at a cost, and for drivers, the cost is time. Ferrari doesn't play that game the same way. It doesn't have to. The Scarlet Red cars, the Cavallino Rampante, the myth of Maranello, These sell themselves. Their sponsors don't demand the same level of constant activation because the Ferrari badge already delivers what money can't buy: cultural permanence. For Hamilton, this wasn't just a scheduling change, it was a shift in philosophy. He was stepping from a system where brand visibility was engineered into one where the brand is the product. That difference matters when the stakes are measured in milliseconds. At Mercedes, the sponsor machine is relentless. At Ferrari, the legend does the heavy lifting, leaving the drivers to focus on the one thing that truly matters: racing. Rosberg's accidental confession highlighted what many in the paddock already whisper. Mercedes' greatest asset may also be its biggest vulnerability. In the pursuit of commercial dominance, they risk burning their own drivers. But here's the political cost. If Hamilton thrives under Ferrari's lighter PR load, it doesn't just reflect on his career, it throws Mercedes' entire model into question. George Russell, still early in his prime, is already rumoured to be pushing back on contract clauses about PR commitments. If Hamilton's success in red is tied to fewer appearances, how long before Russell demands the same? And if Mercedes refuses, do they risk repeating history, losing another star not over performance but over politics? Which leads to the bigger question: is Hamilton's liberation just a personal advantage? Or is it the spark that forces Mercedes to rethink the very structure of its empire? Formula One is a sport of margins. A single tenth of a second in qualifying can shift you from second row to fourth row. Across a season, that tenth compounds into points, and points decide championships. Now imagine what 50 extra days a year mean when repurposed into pure performance. Hamilton's average qualifying deficit to pole at Mercedes in 2023 was 0.21 seconds. That's roughly the gap between locking the front row and starting buried in traffic. If Ferrari's lighter PR load allows Hamilton to claw back even half that time, just a single tenth, that could swing multiple grid spots on Saturday, and with them, track position on Sunday. Track position in modern Formula One often equates directly to finishing position. At circuits like Monaco, Singapore, or Hungary, one grid row can be the difference between victory and irrelevance. Now put it into points. In 2016, Hamilton lost the title to Rosberg by just 5 points. In 2021, Verstappen edged him by 8. That's one race's worth of strategy, one safety car restart, one qualifying session where the margins went the wrong way. If Ferrari's calendar gives Hamilton back 50 days of clarity, that's not just extra simulator hours or recovery cycles. It's potentially the exact swing needed to rewrite championship history. Even more intriguing is how these gains scale across a season. Ferrari runs 24 races in 2025. 50 free days equals 2 full days of additional preparation per race weekend. 2 days of sharper focus, more detailed simulator work, and cleaner recovery. In a season where tyre degradation management alone can swing races, Hamilton's reclaimed energy could manifest not in dramatic overtakes, but in subtler mastery, tyres that last 1 lap longer, an undercut window spotted 1 lap earlier, a mental edge in wheel-to-wheel duels. The math suggests liberation isn't cosmetic, it's competitive. But numbers alone don't drive championships, people do. Which raises the next question: how does Mercedes respond when Hamilton's freedom in red begins turning into results on the timing sheets? For Mercedes, Hamilton's departure wasn't just the loss of a 7-time world champion, it was the exposure of a system. Rosberg's slip about sponsor days didn't just explain why Hamilton left, it highlighted what George Russell now faces. At 27, Russell should be entering his prime, building a career as Mercedes' new spearhead. But the whispers in the paddock suggest his contract negotiations are already tangled in the same web of obligations Hamilton escaped. Russell doesn't command Hamilton's leverage yet, but he isn't blind. He knows Ferrari's drivers carry a far lighter PR load. He knows Red Bull, despite its commercial machine, structures obligations differently for its star names. And he knows Hamilton, freed from those demands, might translate that liberation into points. If the scoreboard reflects it, if Hamilton's clarity in red begins converting into podiums, Russell gains ammunition. Suddenly, it isn't just about salary, car performance, or development promises. It's about time. For Mercedes, this is the nightmare scenario. Sponsor days aren't just obligations. They're contracts worth tens of millions. The brand's dominance off track is fueled by those appearances. If Russell pushes back and Mercedes concedes, the commercial model weakens. If they refuse, they risk alienating the very driver they need to anchor their post-Hamilton era. This is why Hamilton's move is more than personal. It's political. It forces Mercedes to confront a fundamental trade-off: preserve the sponsor-driven empire that underpinned its dominance, or adapt to a new reality where driver focus becomes the ultimate commodity. And there's another shadow looming. McLaren's resurgence has reshaped the competitive order. If Russell feels overburdened while Norris or Piastri thrive in a more balanced environment, the comparison only sharpens. The battle won't just be fought on track. It will be fought in contracts, in boardrooms, in how teams structure the invisible obligations that define modern Formula One. Which leaves the ultimate question: is Mercedes willing to sacrifice commercial muscle to protect performance? Or will Russell face the same crushing weight that once drove Hamilton out? Strip the story down to its core, and Nico Rosberg's casual remark becomes the key to understanding the biggest transfer in modern Formula One. Hamilton didn't walk away from Mercedes simply because the car was slipping behind. He walked away from 60 sponsor days. He walked toward 10, toward freedom, clarity, and time, the most precious currency in this sport. The technical implications are obvious. 50 extra days a year, repurposed into simulator hours, engineering debriefs, and physical recovery are worth tenths of a second on track. And in championships decided by margins as small as 5 or 8 points, those tenths become decisive. But the deeper story is psychological. At Ferrari, Hamilton isn't just wearing red, he's shedding weight. The weight of corporate machinery, of fragmented focus, of being forced to smile when his mind should be solving tyre degradation curves. Mercedes, meanwhile, faces the uncomfortable reality that its commercial strength may be a performance liability. If Russell pushes back on PR demands, Brackley will be forced to decide: protect the empire or protect the driver. That battle could shape not just Russell's career, but the future structure of the team itself. And so the narrative sharpens. Hamilton's move isn't a nostalgic legacy play. It's a strategic recalibration. He isn't chasing the 8th title as a final flourish. He's trying to win it on his own terms, in a system that gives him clarity rather than distraction. The irony is striking. The driver most associated with global visibility may find his final greatness in relative invisibility. Less sponsor days, fewer obligations, more silence, more focus. So here's the question: is this liberation enough? Will 50 extra days of freedom prove more powerful than Mercedes' corporate machine and Red Bull's relentless pace? Or will Hamilton discover that even clarity has its limits when the stopwatch starts? And if you think Hamilton's switch was seismic, wait until you see the ripple effects. Because in the next video, we'll break down how Mercedes is already rewriting Russell's contract structure, and how McLaren's rise threatens to expose both giants. Click through, because this battle isn't just about horsepower, it's about the hidden currency of time and how it might decide the 2025 title.